The red dust of Mars swirled around the research base as Dr. Rivera checked her equipment one more time. It was supposed to be a quiet Tuesday morning at the research station, but nothing about this day would turn out to be quiet. The alarm started, blaring at exactly 7:23 a.m. Dr. Rivera dropped her coffee cup and ran to the control room where her team was already gathered around the main screen. Something had crashed in the desert, about 12 miles from their base. "What are we looking at?" Dr. Rivera asked, pushing through the crowd of scientists. "Unknown aircraft," replied Jenkins, the communications officer. "But it's not one of ours, and it's definitely not from Earth." The rescue team suited up quickly. They had trained for emergencies, but nobody had trained them for this. As they approached the crash site in their rover, they could see smoke rising from a small crater in the red sand. The craft was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was smooth and curved, like a giant silver egg that had been cracked open. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly in the Martian sunlight. "Is anyone alive in there?" whispered Rodriguez, the team medic. That's when they heard it. A sound that made everyone freeze. It was crying, but not like any crying they had heard before. It was musical, haunting, and somehow desperate all at the same time. Dr. Rivera stepped closer to the wreckage. Through a hole in the craft's side, she could see movement. Something was alive in there, and it needed help. "Hello?" she called out softly. "We're here to help." A figure appeared at the opening. It was clearly not human, but it was unmistakably a mother holding her child. The being was tall and slender, with skin that seemed to shimmer like water. Her large eyes were filled with fear and exhaustion. The baby in her arms was the source of the crying. It was small and fragile-looking, wrapped in what appeared to be some kind of soft, glowing fabric. Every few seconds, it would let out another cry that seemed to pierce right through everyone's hearts. "We want to help you," Dr. Rivera said again, taking a step forward. The alien mother backed away, holding her child tighter. The baby's crying grew louder and more distressed. It was as if the little one could sense the humans nearby and didn't like it. The rescue team tried everything they could think of. They offered food, water, and medical supplies. They spoke in soft, gentle voices. They even tried playing peaceful music from their equipment. Nothing worked. Every time a human got close, the baby would cry harder. Back at the base, word of the discovery spread quickly. Within hours, military personnel arrived to secure the area. Among them was Staff Sergeant Torres, a soldier with 20 years of experience and a reputation for staying calm under pressure. Torres had seen a lot in his career, but he had never seen anything like this. He watched from a distance as the medical team continued their attempts to help the alien mother and child. The baby had been crying for almost 6 hours straight, and its cries were getting weaker. "That little one is wearing itself out," Torres said to Dr. Rivera. "Back home, when my nephew was colicky, my sister used to say that sometimes babies just need to feel safe." Dr. Rivera looked at him with tired eyes. "We've tried everything. Every time we get close, it gets worse. It's like the baby can sense our anxiety." Torres nodded thoughtfully. He had noticed something the scientists hadn't. When the rescue team approached with all their equipment and urgent energy, the baby cried harder. But when people stood still and quiet, the crying would sometimes pause as if the little one was listening. "What if it's not about what we're doing?" Torres suggested. "What if it's about how we're feeling?" The alien mother hadn't eaten or slept since the crash. She refused all help, focusing entirely on trying to comfort her child. Her exhaustion was clear, but her dedication was stronger. She would rock the baby gently, make soft humming sounds, and touch its forehead with what seemed to be a special gesture. As night fell on Mars, the situation became more desperate. The medical team worried that both mother and child were becoming dangerously weak. They needed to find a way to help, but every approach they tried only made things worse. Torres spent the evening watching the security monitors. He studied the alien mother's movements, her sounds, her gestures. There was something familiar about it all, something that reminded him of universal parenting behaviors he had seen across different cultures on Earth. "Permission to try a different approach," Torres said to his commanding officer the next morning. "What did you have in mind, Sergeant?" "I want to try going in alone. No equipment, no medical gear, just me. Maybe if I approach differently, without all the scientific urgency, the baby might respond better." His commander looked skeptical. "That's against protocol. We don't know anything about their species or what they might be capable of." "Sir, with respect, what we're doing now isn't working. That baby has been crying for 18 hours straight. If we don't try something different soon, we might lose them both." Dr. Rivera overheard the conversation and stepped forward. "I think he might be onto something. In my research, I've noticed that emotional states can be contagious across species. Maybe the baby is picking up on our scientific detachment and interpreting it as a threat." The next morning, Torres prepared for his attempt. He removed all his military gear except for his basic uniform. No weapons, no communication devices, no recording equipment. Just a soldier who happened to be a father figure to several children back on Earth. As he walked slowly toward the crash site, Torres thought about all the times he had helped calm crying children during his deployments. Sometimes, he remembered, the solution wasn't to try harder. Sometimes it was to try differently. The alien mother watched him approach. Her large eyes tracked his every movement, but something was different this time. Torres moved slowly, calmly, without the urgent energy that had characterized every previous approach. When he was about 10 feet away, he sat down in the red sand and simply waited. He didn't speak, didn't reach out, didn't try to offer anything. He just sat quietly and let his presence speak for itself. For the first time in almost 24 hours, the baby's crying began to soften. It was just a small change, but everyone, watching from the base, noticed it immediately. Torres had found the key. Sometimes the best way to help isn't to do more. Sometimes it's to do less, but do it with complete sincerity and calm. The baby could sense the difference between scientific curiosity and genuine care. This was just the beginning of an extraordinary relationship that would change everything they thought they knew about communication across species. But first, they had to earn the trust of a frightened mother and her crying child, one quiet moment at a time. 3 days had passed since Torres first sat in the sand near the alien mother and child. 3 long days of watching, waiting, and hoping for a breakthrough. The baby's cries had changed during this time, becoming weaker but happening more often. Everyone at the base knew this wasn't a good sign. Dr. Rivera hadn't slept much either. She kept checking the monitors, watching the alien mother try desperately to comfort her child. The mother would rock the baby gently, make soft sounds, and touch its tiny forehead with her long fingers. But nothing seemed to work for very long. "They're both getting weaker," Rodriguez reported during the morning briefing. "The mother hasn't eaten anything we've offered, and we can't tell what the baby needs. Without being able to examine them properly, we're working blind." Torres listened to the medical team's concerns while sipping his coffee. He had been thinking about this problem for days. Every time the medical staff approached with their equipment and urgent energy, both the mother and baby became more distressed. It was like they could sense the humans' worry and confusion. "What if that's exactly the problem?" Torres said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Rivera. "Well, think about it. Every time we approach them, we're anxious, uncertain, maybe even a little scared. What if they can feel that? What if the baby is crying because it senses our fear?" Dr. Chen, the team's behavioral scientist, leaned forward with interest. "That's actually not impossible. Many Earth species can detect emotional states through chemical signals, body language, or even energy fields we don't fully understand." Torres nodded. "Back home, I've seen it with animals and young children. They pick up on adult emotions faster than we realize. If we're stressed, they get stressed. The problem was becoming clearer, but the solution seemed impossible. How could they not feel anxious when dealing with the first alien contact in human history? How could they stay calm when a baby was clearly suffering and they didn't know how to help? "I want to try something different," Torres announced. "Give me permission to spend more time with them. Not trying to help, not trying to fix anything, just being there." His commanding officer looked skeptical. "Sergeant, we have protocols for a reason. We can't just have military personnel playing with alien babies." "With respect, sir, what we're doing now isn't working. That little one has been crying almost non-stop for 3 days. The mother is exhausted. If we don't try something different, we might lose them both." Dr. Rivera supported Torres's request. She had been studying the interaction patterns and noticed something interesting. When Torres was present, the baby's distress levels dropped. Slightly. Not dramatically, but enough to be measurable. "There's definitely something different about how they respond to him," she told the commander. "Maybe it's his military training in staying calm under pressure, or maybe it's something else. But we should let him try." The next morning, Torres prepared for his extended shift with the alien family. He brought only water and a simple meal, removing all his equipment and anything that might seem threatening. As he walked toward the crash site, he tried to empty his mind of worry and focus on projecting calm. The alien mother watched him approach, just as she had every day. But today, Torres did something different. Instead of sitting at his usual distance, he slowly moved a few feet closer and began to hum. It wasn't anything special, just an old song his grandmother used to sing when he was little. A simple melody that had always made him feel safe and loved. He didn't even realize he was doing it at first. The effect was immediate and surprising. The baby's crying stopped completely for the first time in 3 days. The silence was so sudden that everyone monitoring from the base held their breath. The alien mother looked at Torres with what seemed like surprise. Her large eyes studied his face as he continued humming softly. The baby made small, curious sounds instead of cries. "Are you getting this?" Dr. Rivera whispered into her communicator back at the base. Torres continued humming, trying different melodies he remembered from his childhood. Some songs made the baby quiet and still. Others seemed to make the little one more alert and interested. It was like the child was learning about human sounds and deciding which ones felt safe. After an hour of this musical experiment, something extraordinary happened. The alien mother began to make her own sounds, soft and melodic, almost like she was trying to harmonize with Torres' humming. It was the first time she had made any sound other than comforting whispers to her child. "They're communicating," Dr. Chen said excitedly from the observation room. "This is the first real interaction we've had." Torres felt a warmth in his chest that reminded him of the first time his own nephew had smiled at him. There was something universal about this moment, something that went beyond species or language or any of the barriers they had been worried about. The breakthrough continued throughout the day. Torres discovered that certain rhythms and tones seemed to comfort the baby more than others. Military marching cadences, surprisingly, were very effective. The steady, reliable beat seemed to make the little one feel secure. By evening, the baby was sleeping peacefully for the first time since the crash. The alien mother was still weak and exhausted, but she was no longer desperately trying to comfort a crying child. She was able to rest, to eat a small amount of the food they offered, and to begin healing from her injuries. Torres sat quietly nearby, occasionally humming when the baby stirred. He found himself thinking about all the children in his life, all the times he had helped calm a crying child or scared teenager. Maybe being good with kids was a skill that worked across species. Dr. Rivera joined him as the sun set over the Martian landscape. "How did you know that would work?" she asked. Torres shrugged. "I didn't know. I just remembered that when my sister's kids were upset, Sometimes they needed to hear something familiar and comforting. I figured maybe that need was universal. They watched the alien mother sleep next to her peaceful child. For the first time since the crash, both mother and baby looked truly at rest. The crying had stopped, but more importantly, trust was beginning to build. "This changes everything," Dr. Rivera said softly. "If emotional connection can bridge the gap between species, imagine what else might be possible." Torres nodded, already thinking about tomorrow's session. He had a feeling this was just the beginning of something much bigger than anyone had now. The base could have imagined. Sometimes the most important breakthroughs come not from advanced technology or complex theories, but from the simple human ability to care about someone else's suffering and do whatever it takes to help. 2 weeks had passed since Torres first discovered that humming could calm the alien baby. What started as a desperate attempt to help had turned into something neither he nor the research team could have imagined. Torres was now spending 8 hours a day with the alien mother and her child, learning their routines and slowly building trust. The baby, whom the team had started calling Little One, was growing stronger every day. The alien mother seemed healthier too, though she remained cautious around most humans. Torres was different, though. She had begun to trust him in ways that surprised everyone, including himself. "Watch this," Torres said to Dr. Rivera as she joined him for the morning shift. He made a specific humming sound, low and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The baby immediately turned toward the sound and made a small, happy noise in response. "It's like he knows your voice," Dr. Rivera observed, amazed. Torres smiled. "I think he does. But it's more than that. I'm starting to understand what different sounds mean to them." Over the past few days, Torres had been carefully noting which sounds made Little One calm, which made him alert, and which seemed to make him uncomfortable. It was like learning a new language, except this language was made of emotions and feelings, rather than words. The alien mother had been watching Torres's experiments with growing interest. She began making sounds of her own, soft musical tones that seemed to teach Torres about her species' way of communicating comfort and safety. "She's teaching me," Torres realized one morning as the mother demonstrated a particular gesture while making a specific sound. "She's showing me how to take care of him properly." The breakthrough came when Little One started getting fussy during his usual feeding time. Torres had seen the mother perform a certain ritual, touching the baby's forehead while making a gentle humming sound. When Torres tried to copy the gesture, the mother initially seemed startled. But then something beautiful happened. She gently took Torres's hand and showed him the exact way to touch Little One's forehead. Her skin felt warm and slightly textured, like soft leather. She guided his movements, teaching him the proper pressure and motion. "She's letting me help," Torres whispered into his communicator, barely able to contain his excitement. "She's actually teaching me how to care for him." Dr. Rivera watched the interaction from the observation room, documenting everything. This wasn't just first contact anymore. This was the beginning of interspecies cooperation at the most basic, fundamental level, the care of a child. Over the following days, the lessons continued. The alien mother showed Torres how to support Little One's unique body structure when holding him. She taught him which sounds meant the baby was hungry, tired, or just wanted attention. Most importantly, she showed him the special touches and gestures that represented safety and love in her culture. Torres found himself thinking about his own experiences with children back on Earth. Every culture had different ways of caring for babies, but the underlying love and concern were always the same. It seemed this universal truth extended beyond Earth, beyond humanity itself. "You know what's amazing?" Torres said to Dr. Rivera during one of their evening discussions. "She's not just teaching me about her baby, she's teaching me about being a better caregiver in general." The alien mother had incredibly gentle but precise ways of handling her child. she could calm little one's crying with just the right combination of sound, touch, and movement. Torres found himself applying these techniques and discovering they worked with human children, too. Little one was becoming more responsive to Torres each day. The baby would reach toward him when he arrived, make happy sounds when he heard Torres, voice and even seemed to prefer certain songs over others. It was clear that a real bond was forming between the human soldier and the alien child. "He trusts me completely now," Torres said, gently rocking little one as the baby dozed peacefully in his arms. "When I first held him, I was terrified I might hurt him accidentally. Now it feels as natural as breathing." The alien mother had also begun teaching Torres about her species' understanding of child development. Through gestures and demonstrations, she showed him that her people believed in responding immediately to a baby's needs, never letting them cry alone or feel abandoned. "It's making me think about human parenting too," Torres confided to Dr. Rivera. "Maybe we've been overthinking things. Maybe the basics of caring for children are simpler and more universal than we thought." Dr. Rivera was documenting every interaction, but she was also learning on a personal level. Watching Torres with little one was changing her understanding of what it meant to connect across species barriers. "The scientific implications are enormous," she said during her daily report. "But beyond the science, we're witnessing something beautiful. We're seeing that love and care can exist between any two beings who are willing to be patient and open with each other." The most touching moment came when little one fell ill with what seemed like a minor fever. The alien mother was clearly worried, but instead of pushing Torres away, as she might have done weeks earlier, she gestured for him to help. Together, they worked to comfort the sick baby. Torres provided steady humming and gentle rocking, while the mother used her species' traditional healing touches. They took turns caring for little one through the night, working as a team despite their different species and inability to speak the same language. By morning, little one was feeling better, and something had changed between Torres and the alien mother. She looked at him with what could only be described as gratitude and respect. She had accepted him not just as a helper, but as someone who truly cared about her child's well-being. "I think she sees me as family now," Torres said quietly as he watched the mother and child sleep peacefully. Not human family or alien family, just family. The implications of what was happening extended far beyond the research base. Torres was proving that emotional connection and genuine care could overcome any barrier. Species, language, culture, none of these things mattered when it came to the basic desire to protect and nurture a child. As the sun rose over the Martian landscape, Torres continued his gentle humming, watching over both mother and child as they rested. He had come to Mars as a soldier, but he was becoming something much more important, a bridge between worlds built on nothing more complicated than the willingness to care. 3 months had passed since the crash, and the research base felt like a completely different place. What started as a scientific facility studying Mars geology had transformed into something no one could have planned for, the first successful interspecies child care center in human history. Little one was now a healthy, curious baby who had grown noticeably since those first desperate days. His silver skin had a healthy glow, and his large eyes sparkled with intelligence and playfulness. Most remarkably, he had learned to respond to both his mother's musical language and Torres's human sounds with equal comfort. The alien mother, whom the team now called Kala, after she had pointed to herself while making that particular sound, had recovered completely from her crash injuries. But more than physical healing had taken place. She had learned to trust not just Torres, but several other members of the research team. "Watch this," Torres said to the morning briefing room, unable to hide his pride. "Yesterday, little one reached for Dr. Rivera when she walked by. He's never done that with anyone except Kala and me." Dr. Rivera smiled, remembering the moment. "It was incredible. He just stretched out his tiny hand like he wanted me to pick him up. When I did, he made those happy sounds he usually saves for Torres. The breakthrough had opened doors to learning that none of them had expected. Kala began sharing information about her species, using a combination of gestures, drawings in the sand, and simple demonstrations that the research team carefully documented. They learned that her people were called the Leirani, and they came from a world orbiting a dying star. The planet was becoming uninhabitable as their sun grew unstable, forcing her people to search for new homes among the stars. Kayla wasn't just a refugee. She was a scout, sent ahead to find suitable worlds for her people. She was heading to Earth when the solar storm damaged her ship, Dr. Chen explained during one of their analysis sessions. Mars was supposed to be just a brief stop to make repairs. Torres spent his days learning more about Leirani culture through Kayla's patient teaching. He discovered that their society placed enormous importance on child rearing, with every adult considered responsible for the welfare of all children. This explained why Kayla had been so receptive to his help once she realized his genuine intentions. In their culture, refusing help with a child would be almost unthinkable, Torres explained to his commanding officer. They believed that children belonged to the entire community, not just their parents. Little One had become the unofficial mascot of the research base. His curious nature and fearless approach to new experiences delighted everyone. He would reach for shiny objects, make excited sounds when he saw something interesting, and had even started what could only be described as playing games with Torres. The games were simple but meaningful. Torres would hide behind his hands and then reveal his face, making Little One burst into musical laughter. The baby had learned to anticipate the reveal, getting excited before Torres even moved his hands away. He's learning cause and effect, Dr. Rivera observed. This kind of play indicates advanced cognitive development for his age, regardless of species. But perhaps the most significant development was Little One's growing ability to serve as a bridge between species. When new personnel arrived at the base, Little One would study them carefully before deciding whether to be friendly or shy. His reactions helped the team understand who was approaching the situation with genuine openness versus those who were nervous or fearful. It's like he can read people, Torres said, watching Little One wave enthusiastically at a newly arrived engineer while being more reserved with a visiting military inspector. He knows who feels safe and who doesn't. Kayla had begun teaching Torres about Leirani child development and what to expect as Little One grew. Through her demonstrations, he learned that Leirani children developed certain abilities much faster than human children, while others took longer. "Look at this," Torres said, gently supporting Little One as the baby attempted to balance in a sitting position. "Kayla showed me that their babies can sit up much earlier than human babies, but they don't start making sounds until later." The knowledge exchange worked both ways. Kayla was fascinated by human child-rearing practices and would watch intently when Torres demonstrated games or songs from Earth cultures. She seemed particularly interested in lullabies, listening carefully to the melodies and sometimes trying to incorporate similar patterns into her own songs for Little One. The emotional bond between Torres and Little One had grown stronger than anyone expected. The baby would calm down fastest in Torres's arms, and when Torres left for his required rest periods, Little One would often fuss until he returned. "I've never seen anything like it," Dr. Rivera admitted. "The attachment is as strong as any parent-child bond I've observed, despite them being different species." Torres felt it too. When he looked at Little One, he experienced the same protective instincts he felt toward the children in his own family back on Earth. The baby had become precious to him in a way that surprised him with its intensity. The most emotional moment came when Little One fell asleep in Torres's arms during one of their afternoon sessions. As Torres hummed softly, the baby reached up and touched his face with one tiny hand, making a soft, contented sound before drifting off to sleep completely. "He trusts you completely," Kayla had gestured, her large eyes showing what Torres interpreted as approval and gratitude. During quiet moments, Torres would think about the implications of what they were experiencing. This wasn't just about first contact or scientific discovery anymore. They were proving that love, care, and family bonds could exist across any divide. "Sometimes I forget he's not human," Torres confided to Dr. Rivera one evening as they watched Kala and Little One play together. "Then I remember that maybe that's the point. Maybe being human isn't about biology. Maybe it's about how we choose to care for each other." The research team had started receiving messages from Earth about their situation. Word of the successful first contact was spreading through government and scientific channels. Plans were being made for expanded facilities and more personnel, but for Torres, the politics and larger implications mattered less than the small, daily victories. Little One's first successful attempt to mimic one of Torres's humming patterns. The way Kala had started including Torres in Little One's bedtime routine. The moment when Little One had fallen asleep holding both his mother's hand and Torres's finger. "Whatever happens next," Torres said, "we've proved something important here. We've proved that caring about someone else's child can overcome any barrier, even the barrier between species." As he watched Little One sleep peacefully between his mother and his human caregiver, Torres realized that the crying baby who had started this whole journey had taught them all something profound about the nature of family, love, and what it truly means to be connected to another living being. 2 years had passed since that first desperate morning when Little One's cries echoed across the Martian desert. The research base had grown into something no one could have imagined, a thriving community where human and Lirani families lived, worked, and learned together. Little One was now a toddler, walking steadily on his long legs and chattering constantly in a mixture of Lirani musical sounds and human words he had picked up from Torres and the other staff. His curiosity seemed endless, and his fearless approach to exploration kept everyone on their toes. "Papa Torres, look!" Little One called out, using the name he had given Torres months earlier. He held up a small rock he had found, examining it with the same scientific interest he saw in the humans around him every day. Torres smiled, his heart warming as it did every time Little One called him that. The title had started as a simple sound that Little One made when he wanted Torres's attention, but it had evolved into something that everyone at the base recognized as a genuine family relationship. Kala had become the official cultural liaison between her people and the humans. 6 more Lirani ships had arrived over the past year, carrying families who had heard about the successful settlement on Mars. Each new arrival brought children, and Torres found himself training other humans in the childcare techniques that had worked so well with Little One. "The key is patience," Torres explained to a group of new volunteers. "Don't try to force interaction. Let the children come to you when they're ready. And remember, their parents can sense your emotions just as much as the children can." The base now housed 43 humans and 27 Lirani, with more families arriving each month. What had started as a desperate rescue mission had become the foundation for the first truly integrated interspecies community in human history. Torres had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Family Services, a job title that hadn't existed 2 years earlier. His main responsibility was overseeing the care and integration of Lirani children into the mixed community, but his real job was much simpler, making sure every child felt safe, loved, and welcome. "I never imagined this is where my military career would lead," Torres told Dr. Rivera as they watched a group of human and Lirani children playing together in the base's new recreation dome. "But I can't think of anything more important than what we're doing here." The children were the real success story of the integration. While adults sometimes struggled with language barriers and cultural differences, the children seemed to navigate between species with natural ease. They played games that combined human and Lirani traditions, created art that mixed both cultural styles, and communicated through a language that was part words, part music, and part pure understanding. Little One had become a natural leader among the children. His unique position as the first Lirani child to bond with humans made him a bridge between the two communities. He would help newly arrived Lirani children feel comfortable around humans, while also teaching human children how to play Lirani games. He's become everything we hoped for, Kayla told Torres one evening as they watched Little One help a shy human girl learn a Lirani song. He carries both worlds in his heart. The most significant change came when Torres's own family arrived from Earth. His sister had requested transfer to Mars, bringing her 2 children to join the growing community. Torres had been nervous about how Little One would react to sharing his attention, but he needn't have worried. "Uncle Torres!" his nephew called out as the transport ship landed. But before Torres could respond, Little One had run forward and taken the boy's hand, chattering excitedly in his mixed language as if welcoming a long-lost friend. "That's Little One," Torres explained to his sister as they watched the children immediately begin playing together. He's family." His sister studied the scene with amazement. "I can see that. The way he looks at you, the way you—" "Look at him. It's exactly like the pictures you sent, but seeing it in person is incredible." The integration wasn't always smooth. There were misunderstandings, moments of frustration, and times when cultural differences seemed insurmountable. But every challenge was met with the same approach that had worked from the beginning: patience, openness, and a focus on what connected them rather than what divided them. Dr. Rivera had documented every aspect of the community's development, creating the first comprehensive guide to interspecies family integration. Her research was being studied on Earth and had become the foundation for similar programs being planned for other worlds. "What we've learned here goes beyond just humans and Lirani," she explained in her final report to Earth Command. "We've demonstrated that successful integration is possible between any species willing to approach each other with genuine care and respect. The most touching development was the creation of new traditions that belonged to neither human nor Lirani culture alone, but to their shared community. They celebrated a combined harvest festival that included elements from both worlds. They had developed new songs that mixed human melodies with Lirani harmonics. Most importantly, they had created new family structures that recognized love and care regardless of species." Torres often found himself thinking about that first morning when Little One's cries had brought them all together. The sound that had once represented desperation and fear had led to the most beautiful thing he had ever been part of. "You know what amazes me most?" Torres said to Kayla as they sat together watching their children play in the evening light of the Martian sunset. "We worried so much about the differences between our species, but we forgot about the things that are the same." Kayla made a sound that Torres had learned meant agreement and contentment. "Children cry the same everywhere," she said in her careful English, "and love sounds the same too." Little One ran over to them, tired from playing but still chattering excitedly about his day. He climbed into Torres's lap while reaching for his mother's hand, creating a bridge between them as he had done so many times before. "Papa Torres, will you sing the sleepy song?" Little One asked, using the phrase he had created for the lullabies that had first calmed his fears years earlier. As Torres began to hum the familiar melody, joined by Kayla's harmonious voice, he realized that the crying baby who had changed everything had grown into something even more wonderful, a living symbol of hope, proving that families could be created through love and choice, and that home could be built anywhere people cared enough about each other to make it work. Looking around at their thriving community, with human and Lirani families living together in peace, Torres knew that Little One's first cries had been more than sounds of distress. They had been the first notes of a song that was still being written, a song about how love can overcome any barrier and how the simplest act of caring for a child can change the course of history itself. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities that no one could have imagined when that small silver ship first crashed in the red sand of Mars. But whatever came next, They would face it together. One big, mixed, wonderful family that had learned the most important lesson of all, that love knows no boundaries.